Hi. I'm Bobby. I am a robot cat. Welcome to part 3 of Katie and the Cult. My dear viewers, part 3 is far different than the first two parts. However, part 1 and 2 were crucial to aiding you in the absorption of this final chapter of my deep dive into the allegation that Catherine Joy survived a religious cult. In this segment, we will navigate in portions separated by topic. We are going to explore the contradictions based on the timeline that Catherine gave and both of her cult videos, followed by an exploration and comparison of Catherine Joy's story from the first video, and the story of her former colleague at Patheos. And given many of you are driving me absolutely bonkers to do another Catherine, is this your format production? This will indeed be that type of video. Let us begin.
We've always sort of felt like interlopers since we've moved here.
Yeah, we don't belong.
I think Katie's talked about it before on the streams, but
we don't belong here at all.
yeah, it was we were just kind of, I don't know, just kind of searching for some sort of belonging.
Yes, community.
I should like to read a portion of an article written by Catherine Joy on 23rd of August 2018 titled, "When I Was on the Verge of Becoming an Alcoholic. Our neighborhood made binge drinking easy and accessible. We moved to a small town in 2013. Neighbors had parties and bonfires in the summers. Adults sat around the fire binge drinking until the early hours of the morning. No one talked about the effect the drinking might have on our kids. Adulting and socializing meant we all got to drink and get tipsy together. The following morning I would wake up with a killer hangover. Instantly, I felt stupid for drinking so much the night before. My son needed me to be at my best, and I could barely function. My husband's temper was short-fused. Both of us walked like zombies through the weekend. Our son may not have understood why we didn't feel right, but he knew that something wasn't right."
And I'm making bone broth because I'm scared of all of the chemicals, and suddenly we're questioning medicine, and everything that I had once been so steadfast knowing that it was okay, I suddenly found myself like in an alternate universe.
Catherine, is this you? On the eve of Christmas 2017 you wrote this: "Merry Christmas to all of our Christian friends. Today our family celebrates the birth of our Savior, Jesus Christ, and we are reminded of God's grace. He's shown us that despite tremendous obstacles with Vaughn, that He always shows us the way. Some people call it mother's intuition, but I call it the Holy Spirit. I am guided and nudged constantly to help Vaughn. I seek out things I never knew before, and while I've gone down some wrong paths, I found the way to Vaughn's diagnosis. We never expected answered prayers, but we prayed mercilessly for an answer for Vaughn. Our faith kept us grounded and gave us hope despite our bleak outlook. Finally, in December our prayers were answered. Vaughn's disease was discovered and surgery was done. I am a firm believer that God gives us modern medicine as a tool. With His help, Vaughn has renewed life, better health, and a more vibrant personality. As Matthew 19:26 says, with God all things are possible. Our lives are possible because Christ was born and saved us. And He's helped us help Vaughn. God has big plans for Vaughn, and I can't wait to see them. We wish all of you a warm and Merry Christmas. May your hearts be filled with Christ's love, and may you remember today that no matter what, all things are possible."
All I remember wanting was community, and I suddenly was like so deep into something that I didn't even know what it was. And the only friends that I had anymore were within the church, and they were like yes, just hang out with your friends. Yes, just hang out with us. Make your community here. Don't worry about the outside world. Your family is here. And
Catherine, is this you? In April of 2015 you took a trip to meet up with the online mummy group that you would later piss right the fuck off. After alleged fraudulent fundraisers. Catherine, is this you? While still heavily involved in the church, you took a family vacation to Faith's Lodge, a non-church related getaway tailored to parents of special needs children. Faith's Lodge was an amazing retreat. We went as a group and met another family. We talked, laughed, painted, played cards, had therapy with a counselor, the kids played, didn't sleep, and made new friends. I'm blessed to have these ladies as the best friends I never wanted to have.
Catholic Church, it's very, they have the Catholic charities. So when he said that, I started to look inward and I thought, oh my God, there is nothing going on here. Like, what are we doing? And then when family members or people were struggling, I noticed that within the community that nobody was helping these people. So when a member of the church was struggling financially or something, the church wasn't offering to help them, or if they did, it was very minimal.
Catherine, is this you? I love when friends take care of my heart when I cannot. Thank you to my church friends for going above and beyond this week. Happy Easter from one tired and grateful boy. Balloons courtesy of our church friends who surprised Von. Our friends M, Spencer, Jack, and Philly all wore shirts to support Von. M also made a beautiful blanket for Von. We are so blessed to have such a great church family. Thank you, guys. Suzanne Tickermeyer is a former member of the Quiverful Church. For many years she has written about her experience. She has also shared much of this with Catherine Joy, who is a former colleague as well as someone who communicated with her quite often on the topic. When Suzanne saw my part 1 video, she referred me to her own video, which is the story of her experience in the church. Well, some may say this video was uploaded after Catherine Joy, the replica of the story, and much greater detail has been written by Suzanne years prior. I should like to show you some clips from both videos.
Or if you're watching, you or Ian or Andy, I'm waving, because I know you sometimes will watch my feeds. My youngest child, 6 weeks to the day after the flood, got very ill. And about 3 months later, I did. But what happened with her, her platelets started dying, and nobody had any idea why. I had her UVA over and over and over. She'd have a week in the hospital, 2 days out, back in the hospital for another week. It was a really stressful time. Between having to throw away inventory and clean out the muck of the store that was flooded, that was bad and depressing enough, particularly if you add in the fact that I'd just gotten a deli order and ice cream order to the tune of like $6,000, and I had to throw it all away. It was just one of the most depressing times you could imagine. I had people in the community that were angry at me because I actually had to shut down the store at one point to take her to the hospital. It was that bad. So I'm laboring under this horrible stress. And my husband has this friend, I'm going to call him Tom Smith, because that's what I call him on NLQ, on No Longer Quivering. Tom went to this church he was always trying to get us to go to, and we'd gone to it a couple times, and I kept telling John, I says, they're like Stepford people. They are all smiley and weird, and I just don't want any part of that.
And then my husband's mother got sick, and then my uncle got sick, and then our family got really rattled by my son's health. And I ended up feeling very vulnerable and very alone. We had just moved to this like sort of rural community. And so I, maybe indirectly dealing with the grief of what was going on in my family and with my son, was seeking something. I needed a community. I needed something. I needed a place to go. You know, one of my friends told me about this place, said, check this out. I went onto the website. Everything looked very different.
So I'd already been to this church. Well, Tom came around, and I was trying to get a hold of Jim. That very first time that I was taking Laura to the hospital to say, I'm on my way to UVA right now. They're telling me that our daughter likely has leukemia. Well, it was not leukemia, thank God. It was ITP, idiopathic thrombocytopenia purpura. I think that's how it's pronounced. So she was really sick for a long time. During her really sick for a long time thing, what happened was Tom Smith and the members of the church came alongside me and started love bombing me. Now, if you've ever been part of a CULT, you'll know what love bombing is. Basically, what happens is they find you when you're your most emotionally vulnerable place, and they just pour love, acceptance, whatever on you until you crumble and join. That's kind of what love bombing is.
feeling like deceived because I realized I had been love bombed. I had been brought into a situation at my most vulnerable point and sort of suffocated by the affection and the attention, told that I was going to have all of these things. And then when I got in there and I realized and started questioning, I soon realized that nothing was as it seemed.
That was going on. They were all love bombing me, and I eventually sort of joined the church, and so did Jim. And they were so nice to me. They were so loving and so understanding. What could I do? But so I joined. And at first, it seemed like just a really good, nice country church. Hey, Rena-Roo, where everybody knew each other and everybody loved one another. The pastor seemed sweet. There was not a hint that there was toxic anything going on. And I'm not sure how toxic level it was at that point anyway. So I joined.
And I sat through my first service and I cried because it had been such a long time since I'd been in any sort of church. And I remember feeling guilty because that's what you do when you're Catholic. And I remember feeling like I want to have this feeling again. I just want to keep having that feeling. I don't know that I wanted to believe. I just wanted to have that feeling because I felt so alone for such a long time. And suddenly I found myself invested and involved in this group. I didn't know anything about their doctrine, very limited. I mean, their website was it gave you enough without giving you much. And that's how a lot of these websites and a lot of these sort of rock band churches work, where you feel like you're walking into a modern place where there's modern thoughts and modern feelings. And
with our 4-year-old daughter who was having health issues. I joined with our 7-year-old son and my husband. And my husband had been agitating off and on for years for us to go to church, and we'd go for a while and not go to different churches. So I just thought this was just more of the same. We were just coming here for a while. But I got so sick that we sold the store and started going to things like women's Bible study. I started fully participating. Jim sort of participated, but he didn't participate at the level that I was participating in. And there were a few little red flags all the way from the beginning.
I got really invested, and I was going to groups all the time, and I was going to women's groups and Bible studies and home churches, and I was volunteering. And initially what it looked like on the surface was a group of people that were in life together, doing life together, helping people, supporting one another. Ministry studies at all. He didn't have a very good theological background. He had somehow built this church based on what he had learned because his father was a pastor in the Pentecostal church, and taken that charisma that's a part of the church and turned it into a modern day rock show that was packaging fundamental beliefs behind this bow of acceptance.
Catherine wrote this article, 29th of December 2017, titled Why I Am Bitter and Jealous as a Special Needs Mum. Within weeks of when she alleged to have left the abusive and manipulative church. First, she writes this on reflection of her feelings toward other mums at the church. When I'm running on fumes, I find that most days my emotions are all over the place. On the hard days, and there are many, my feelings and my thoughts go to places that I hate to admit. I find myself having thoughts of anger, jealousy, and resentment toward parents of children that are healthy. His health is so complex, and I feel totally cheated of a healthy child. I feel bad he has had to walk this very difficult road, and I'm angry that he has had to suffer so incredibly much in such a short amount of time. These are the days it is the hardest for me to listen to parents of healthy children complain or vent about their emergencies with their children. On my tough days, I find myself rolling my eyes, muttering under my breath, and feeling complete detest for their complaints. I listen as they talk about bumps, bruises, 2-hour trips to the ear infections, or strep throat, and I wonder if they realize how incredibly lucky they are that this is what is hard in their lives. The anger builds up in my chest, and I think about the month-long stays at the hospital, the sea of doctors that are on our team, and the cabinet full of medicine I have to keep my son alive. While her feelings are quite valid, the purpose of this would be what she goes on to say. You see, by the advice of her terrible pastor, she was attending outside therapy, as well as counseling with the evil rock star. Here is what she says of her pastor. Here are a few things I have learned with help from my therapist and my pastor. It's okay to feel what you do: grief, jealousy, and anger are natural reactions and emotions. It's okay to acknowledge your grief and pain. It's not okay to project your anger or pain onto a friend or family member. It's not okay to minimize others' suffering because everyone suffers. Remember, life is about perspective and we all have different views on what is hard for us. When in doubt, fake it. Be happy even if you can't bite your tongue. If you can't say anything nice, take a deep breath and remember that these feelings and emotions will pass no matter what. Remember that part of this journey is that you will have ugly emotions. There is no shame in admitting you have these feelings. To move forward, try to remember that the only way ahead is to move past those feelings. Staying stuck in grief and anger will only make you angry and depressed. Reach out to friends, family, or to professional counselors to work through these feelings. No matter what, always remember your best today will be your best today, and give yourself the grace you deserve to make mistakes.
And I know this because of the puppet ministry thing that we did, that we picked up from them. So there was no one ministry theology they were following. They were kind of making it up as they went along. Some people there were hardcore Vision Forum followers. There were people that were big supporters of Mike and Debbie Pearl in their To Train Up a Child, Beat Your Kid Silly book. There were people that followed Vonnie Baltram and those guys. There were others that followed other ministries. So there was none of these ministries, ATI, Bill Gothard, all that. None of that was actually part of our church, but various people followed these ministries and brought parts of it into the church.
What next, right? And you start becoming part of this machine and you're slowly separating yourself from everyone around you. And then you've got a pastor that has no accountability. There's no denomination around him, no rules. He kicks out the other pastor, and then drunk on power, anytime one of the members says to him, what about these, could you do something different here? Could we add services here? Or could we do this? Or could we do that? It was always met by, if this is not how you like it, you can leave. This is my church and this is what we're going to do.
So here I am trying to be submissive to my husband, trying to be honoring to my pastor in my church. I came off that platform. My husband was there. He was on his way to the Methodist church and said, look, I'm coming with you to the Methodist church. This is going to be my last Sunday here. Can you stay for the service? And then afterwards we can get the pastor to release us. So he stayed. He stayed for me that time. We got to the end. We went to the pastor. We approached the pastor and said, look, this was our last Sunday at church. We're not coming back. We're not coming back. And he got very nasty with us. He got nasty with me. He said, I refuse to release you. I refuse to release you and send you off with a prayer. I refuse that. Fortunately for us, a dear sweet friend who was also a pastor, but was not the pastor of that church, he overheard this and said, come here, let me pray for you. And that's what he did.
And I remember the morning I woke up and I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, and I couldn't believe that I got involved in this. Because I realized that all the friends I made, I started voicing my concerns, and some of them shared the same things, but they weren't going to leave. Others did leave because it started getting weirder and weirder. But I remember this sort of come to realization with my husband, and I said, I can't do this anymore. We were 3 years in, we were thousands of dollars of donations and tithing and hours of sweat and tears of volunteering. And I remember saying to him, I think we're like in a cult. And it was the craziest experience. Like we left.
And he prayed for us and did the whole, I'm releasing you from this church thing. Releasing us from the theology that says my husband's always right. He released us from the theology that said beat your children. He released us from all the toxic thoughts that doctors were evil, the whole 9 yards. The next week, I went with my husband to the Methodist church in town. Oh, thank you. I have lots of strays. I have lots and lots of strays. That's my ministry now. I feed stray cats. So we left. The next week, I was at the Methodist church. They had just started, not a month before, a contemporary worship service. So that's the one we went to. I met various people. I met people that had been badly damaged by the local Al Mohler Baptist church plant. I met people from all sorts of fundamentalist churches who'd been hurt, who were there because of that. There was a small group of us, maybe 20. And I joined the brand new worship team. We joined the brand new service, and away we went. But it gets way worse than that. I thought I was done with it, but I thought I could still have friends there. My mistake. That was just the beginning of the end. What happened was, where we were living was a small southern town, of course, in Virginia. And word spread. Once word spread that we had left, We were apostates now and unbelievers because we were going to church with the Methodists with the homosexual abortionists. It's really what they thought, because the Methodist Church at that time had a saying that was open hearts, open hands. And I know so many people that came out of the most toxic fundamentalist churches in that area that ended up at our service, including a few pastors out of those very fundamentalist churches. So for me, it turned into a torture sometime. Nobody said a thing to my husband. But whenever I went out in public in my small southern town, I'd run into somebody. They may not have been in my home church, but they were one of the other churches that were loosely affiliated with it, and say, I heard you turn your back on Jesus. You're apostate now.
Left. And it wasn't like we had to flee for our lives, but we lost everything. It was insane. We had become isolated from all of our outside friends because we had ingrained and sculpted our life around these group of people, assuming that if we left, it wouldn't be a big deal. These people would still be our friends. We had spent so much time with them. They were going to be there for us. That's what this was about, right? Wrong.
And I have to say, no, I'm not. What happened was my husband wanted to go to the Methodist church and I followed him. Aren't I supposed to be submissive to his wishes? What I finally started doing was I did the Jesus. You've ever noticed when Jesus ran across anybody that was opposing his theology, a lot of times he would ask questions. Asking questions was a technique I learned during my Stevens ministry training. So somebody would run up and ask me a question. So I say, I heard you were this, and this. And, well, who told you that? And then they tell me, I said, why would they say such a thing? And I just kept on going and going and going, and it shut them up. It finally silenced my critics totally. I had 2 years of this almost daily running into people who were saying things to me in my small town. I cried every single day for 2 long years before I managed to get a hold of myself and go, guess what? No.
When we finally left, it was very quiet, but it was also very loud because the people around us noticed. And when I tried to speak out on social media, I was met with a lot of pushback. A lot of people blocked me. A lot of people told me I was lying when I made statements about the financials or about the leadership or about the doctrine or just about the overall community. It was like I was lying, and soon we had no friends. Everything that I had once held dear to me, because the pastors said you don't need college education, you don't need public schools, women, you don't need to work out of the home. I quit my job during this time, mind you. Yeah, I did. I became a stay-at-home mom. That was never my plan.
Please recall that they joined the church in 2015. Now, ears open to this portion of the same blog Catherine shared on moving into their home, and alcoholism. My husband and I always enjoyed sharing a bottle of full-bodied red wine. Cabernets and spicy Spanish reds were our favorites. When we built a home in 2013, we added a wet bar in our basement. The bar included racks for wine. I looked forward to collecting and storing wine. I envisioned us drinking moderately. Our lives were stressful. My husband's full-time job gave him anxiety. A glass or two of wine helped him unwind. I left my job to care for our son. My son's care exhausted me. At night, the only way I imagined letting go of my stress was by reaching for a glass of wine. I do hope that you enjoyed this conclusion to my 3-part series. Please do your own research and come to your own conclusions. The archived article links are below, as well as Suzanne's original video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel. This cat is always prowling.